in your space that you're going to be working with. Feet are going to be hip distance apart. So just like we do on the reformer, warming up with our footwork series, if you have a wall or something nearby that you want to hold on to, just know that they're there, but we're not trying to use them, okay? So with the feet in parallel, keeping the hands down by the sides or maybe the palms pressing back behind you. Not that you're arching through the back, but that you're feeling a little bit more of that kind of imprinted spine rather than imprinting down into a carriage. I want you to kind of like tilt the pelvis so that the hips have pulled up towards the ribs have wrapped down, and taking a nice cleansing breath in and out. Now moving with the arms. Inhale in and out. Kind of spreading the toes wide. Inhale in and out. Now bending into the knees. Inhale in and out. 2 more times. Inhale in, out. Getting a little deeper. Inhale in. And on your next exhale, grab behind the thighs, kind of rest the chest onto the thighs there, giving yourself like a kind of big hug, keeping the head heavy. And from there, lengthen the legs out. So tailbone goes high, head stays low. Kind of shake the head out side to side. So allowing the next 50 minutes of class for today being a sense of like exploration with the body. So if something feels good and you want to hold it for a little bit longer than what I'm cueing you to do, then hold it. Allow yourself and give yourself permission to like move the body. So now swaying the hips side to side. If holding onto the back of the thighs also doesn't feel good, you can cross the arms there and sway side to side this way. Maybe bending a little deeper into the knees or straightening out through the legs, just as long as they're not locked out. And kind of opening up through the hips and the low back. Then reach the arms down, bring stillness back into the body, bend into the knees if you weren't bent before, and then slowly stack the spine up nice and tall, rounding through shoulders, neck, and head, the last to come up. And when they do, roll the shoulders up towards the ears and down the back. Good. Now, from there, lift the heels. As you exhale, inhale, lower. Exhale, lift the heels, inhale, lower. And continue as you lift and lower. It's not like a kind of bouncing movement. We want to make it fluid, kind of finding no end or beginning to the motion itself. Keeping the shoulders rolled down the back, kind of looking at something that's not moving in front of you. And if you can see it from the side, my heels are not sickling out to the side. So if I had something like maybe like a cat's can or a tennis ball in between the heels, I'm going to show you what it looks like from the front. So the heels stay right next to each other at all times. And what I mean by sickling, and I talk about this all the time in my class, this position right here is not good for the feet, for the ankles, for any part in the leg here. So I want you to lower back down if that's where you are at, lifting up like somebody's pulling the shoelaces of your feet forward, and then lowering back down that way. So you can keep that alignment through the feet, through the ankles as you're lifting and lowering. And then the next time you lower the heels, bring them together and turn the toes out into Pilates V and keep lifting and lowering. Now, starting to engage through the glutes if you haven't already, keeping that core pulled in, belly button drawn in towards the spine and up in towards the rib cage as the hands are kind of pressing back behind you. So you can feel a slight expansion of the chest, a slight widening of the collarbones there. For 2 more. And 1 more. Now, staying there in that Pilates V, let the knees open away from each other in the direction that the toes are pointing and the tailbone staying heavy. So it's not you're leaning forward to get down low towards the ground like this. Instead, you stay tall. It's a very smaller motion than what you would expect because it's like you're going down and up an elevator shaft. Just down 1 floor and then back up to the other floor. And as you're lifting and lowering, as you lift, I want you to feel the inner thighs come back together. As you lower, open them out to the side again. Okay? For 3 more, 2 more, And one more. Now lift the heels up, keeping them together, keeping the glutes engaged, pelvic floor engaged, pulling up and in. And then can you lower down a little bit lower? So now this is where we get going down to the basement floor, maybe up to the 6th or 7th floor of your elevator. Keeping the heels together will make sure that the inner thighs are staying turned on. You can keep the alignment with the hips over the heels for 3 more. Last 2. Woo. And final 1. Awesome. Then lower those heels back down, separate the heels again, and bring yourself back into parallel. So now lowering the heels or bending into the knees, and then lifting back up. So kind of just like feeling like you're about to like crouch down into almost kneeling position. Working through that ankle dorsiflexion for 2 more. And 1 more. Good. And then start to wag the tail or bend into one knee and the other, keeping both feet planted like you would for prancing. So one knee bends as the other leg straightens. And then allow that to happen on the other side. But this time I do want you to allow the hips to move side to side. So typically, whenever I'm cueing this, when you're on the reformer doing footwork, this is what we don't want to happen. But here, allow it to happen so you can feel a little bit of opening through the straight leg on the outer hip there. Then square up the hips and keep the hips still this time, and just notice the difference. Now it's more of an active movement rather than a passive stretch. So you're starting to learn these kinds of differences in the body when we're thinking about alignment in the movement. And then start to lift up one heel, press the other heel up so now both legs are straight, and then drop that first heel down. As you're lifting and lowering, this is the same kind of movement we want to have through our prancing on the reformer. Exhale, lift, inhale, lower. 5, 4, last 3, final 2, and 1. Lower both heels down. Inhale the arms up overhead. And exhale, waterfall the hands down, tucking the chin in towards the chest, rolling through, and kind of like you're diving into the water without making a splash, hands down towards the earth here, bending and extending through one knee and the next, allowing the hips to wag side to side. Good. And then opening the feet a little wider than hip distance apart as well. So from here, bend into your right knee or left knee, planting your left hand, keeping the right leg straight, and then inhaling the right arm up towards the ceiling there. Exhale back down. Place the hand where the left hand was, bend into your right knee, left leg straightens out, and left arm reaches up. Exhale, place the hand down, bend into both knees so now both hands can plant, and straighten through both legs, drop the head. Inhale, drop the hips and bend the knees. Exhale, straighten away from the earth there and press away. One more time, inhale, kind of coming into like a froggy seated position, and then exhale, press away, drop the head between the arms. Then from there, walk the feet back together underneath of the hips, walking the hands out into a plank position, hand under the shoulders, toes tucked underneath, belly button engaged. If you need to, you drop down to the knees. As long as you have knee, hip, shoulder, head alignment, then you take on your plank. That feels good for the body here. Taking an inhale to lift the right leg off of the ground and exhale to pull it in. Step it back and lift the left leg. Exhale, pull it in. Keep going from one side to the next, not shifting the hips side to side. So right now, this is what we should look like. I'm going to show you what we don't want. No shifting of the hips and curling in or lowering the belly down. It's like the only thing that we want to move is just the leg itself. Final 2, final 1, and 1. Good. Shift the hips back into a pike or a downward dog position. If you're on your knees, you can shift back into a child's pose. If you weren't on your knees and the child's pose feels better than your downward dog or pike position, just rest it out here, kind of shifting the hips side to side. This is going to be a slower movement pace class. So if you're feeling, this kind of weather makes me want to just like cuddle up under a big heavy blanket and watch movies all day. So this is why the kind of inspiration for the class, this is where the inspiration for the class came from. Go ahead, shift the weight forward over the wrists there, shoulders over the wrists, knees under the hips, reaching the right leg back behind you, pointing through the toes. Tap down, lift up, tap down, lift up. Making sure that core stays engaged at all times. So as the leg lifts up, the belly doesn't drop down and we don't arch through the back. Instead, it's just that movement of the leg that's helping to lift it up. Movement of the glute, that's helping to lift it up. From there, keep the leg lifted, turn the toes out slightly, and watch that the body didn't shift off to the left, okay? So both hands are evenly pressed down onto the mat there. The hips are still in line, but we've now turned our toes out towards the side. So the leg might come down at an angle now as you continue to lift and lower. Final 3. Last 2. And final 1. Now bend that knee in towards the outside of that right elbow. Reaching long, pulling in. Reaching long and pulling in. Let's do 4 more here. Noticing again, maybe that weight has started to shift a little bit more into that right hand. Last 2. And 1. Reach the leg, place it back down into that tabletop position. And kind of give yourself a couple of rolls there through the body. Maybe some shoulder rolls, maybe some neck rolls. Again, allow this to be an exploration here for your body, for your practice. For the next 45 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on how far away, if it's 40 minutes, allow it to have, for yourself to have a conversation with yourself. Left leg reaches long, stays long as you lower and lift. Lower, lift. 5, 4, 3, last 2. If you do have any wrist problems, hold that leg up. You can bring yourself down to the forearms of your hand there, turning the toes out to the side, keeping the hips stacked over that right knee, and lifting out at that oblique kind of angle there. Last 4. Final 3, check back in with the core, always checking in with it, pelvic floor drawing up and in. And I'll pull that knee in towards the opposite elbow or armpit, keeping the hips stacked. I'm going to raise myself back up onto my hands though. I want to make sure I'm even on both sides. For 3, 2, feeling the obliques pull the leg in, last 1. Lower that knee back down. And again, roll yourself out through any organic or authentic movements in that tabletop position. And pull back into your child's pose again. Hips to heels, opening the knees out as wide or as narrow as you want. And then just kind of rocking the body side to side. Good. All right, coming back up into tabletop. From there, lengthen the left leg out to the side and then lower it down, turning the right foot back behind you and coming up into a kneeling pose here. So in this kneeling position, top of the feet or the toes can be tucked underneath depending on what feels best for your body. Reaching the arms out to the side and taking a side bend over the long leg. Inhaling all the way back up. Take that same arm now across to that long leg as the other arm reaches up and over. Inhale back up. And continue. Do 2 more each direction. Just feeling the side bodies opening up. Ribs pulling away from the hips. Inhaling the spine tall, a little bit taller each time. And switch. And then reaching the arms out. As you inhale, reach the arms forward, pull the hips back towards the heel behind you. And then as you exhale, bring the hands to the sides of the hips like chest expansion and stack the spine tall. Inhale to reach. Exhale, stack tall. Inhale, reach. So you should feel the glutes, especially on that right side, pressing the hips forward as the core stays engaged and helps you to stack the spine a little bit taller. Let's do 2 more. Pressing the hands back to help open up the chest. Not that you're arching back into it, but that you're feeling the back body light up. 1 more time. Good. And then from there, bring yourself with the right hand down towards the ground into your side kneeling position. Okay, from here, shoulders stacked, hips stacked, and lift that top leg off of the ground. So now you're using a little bit of side booty, a little bit of core and those obliques as you pulse that leg up and down for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold. Flex the toes towards the shin there. Reach it forward, then point the toes to bring it back behind you just a little bit. Flex the toes forward. Inhale, point the toes back. Exhale. 3, 2, final 1. Then tiny circles, or as big as you can maintain the body staying still circles around for 3 more, 2 more, 1 more. Switch directions. So the goal here is to try and keep everything else still so you're not like moving around with the leg. The leg is moving on its own for 2 and 1. Place the leg down and then come back into your tabletop position. Tabletop to child's pose, kind of shimming those hips side to side again. Good. And then back up into tabletop. I want you instead now to reach the other leg to the top of your mat. Okay. And then that left leg is going to be underneath of you. We come up to stack the spine tall, taking those side bends to one side, inhaling up, exhaling to the other side, crossing the body with that left arm. Inhale up, exhale over. Inhale up and exhale over. 1 more time. Good. And then from there, reaching the arms forward as the hips go back towards the heel, and then pressing the hands back and stacking the spine tall up over that bottom knee. Inhale forward as the hips hinge back. Exhale, push the hips forward by using and engaging through the glutes there. Let's do 4 more. Feeling the back of the arms light up, widening through the collarbones. 3. Last 2. Final 1. Then place that left hand down onto the ground. Either top arm can reach up towards the ceiling or place it onto the hip, wherever it's comfortable, as that right leg starts to pulse up for a total of 10. Here's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. From there, flex the toes up towards the shin, kick forward, point to kick back, flex forward, point back. Inhale forward, exhale back. Last 3. Like your leg is sliding across the tabletop surface. 2. Trying not to lift or lower any lower than or higher than it is. And then pointing through the toes, draw little tiny circles, still pressing away from the mat there, away from the earth, and switch directions. And then bringing that leg back down. Now facing forward towards the long side of your mat, come into that child's pose this way. Kind of shimmy side to side, waving out those hips, kind of joining the space there or enjoying the space that we just made. Good. And then stacking up tall over both knees this time. So in this thigh stretch position, knees are hip distance apart. And I like to bring the toes together. So you've just created like a little triangle base of support for yourself. Reaching the arms forward, keeping the glutes engaged, core engaged, ribs wrapped down, reaching the arms forward. As you inhale, you hinge back. Exhale, bring it forward. Inhale, hinge back. And exhale, hinge it forward. So each time you go back is an opportunity for you to find maybe a little bit more space through the front of the thighs. While keeping that strong engagement through the back body, you're able and allowing yourself to open up through the front body. Give yourself permission here. 2 more. And 1 more. All right. So now bringing ourselves down to the ground onto our back here. This is where our little band or maybe your article of clothing comes into play here. So we're going to start with it around the wrists to begin. Planting the feet, bending the knees, reaching the arms forward with the band around the wrists. Goodness. So with the band there, try to open out and feel that engagement through the back of the body, spine tall, fingertips long, inhale, and as you exhale, C-curve down, pulling the belly button towards the spine as you roll down out of that seated position. With the arms reaching back up and overhead, as you exhale, feel yourself arms reaching forward, peeling up one bone at a time out of that seated position. Inhale tall, exhale down. If coming up out of this roll down position is a little difficult or challenging for you, one thing that you can do is, watch me, so bend one knee in towards the chest as the arms are reaching up. I want you to lift up as far as you can with control and then grab behind the leg, then reach the leg long and then let go of it once you feel like you can finish that control up into your seated position. Now, if this is feeling a little too easy for you, sit up tall, grow the legs long. Back of the legs pressing into the earth, either pointed or flexed toes, just as long as the legs are strong and long there. And as you roll down, feel again each bone pressing into the earth. Exhale, spreading the arms apart. Good. And now reaching over those legs. So everybody go ahead, lengthen out the legs, stack the spine tall, exhale down. Inhale up and over, exhale, we'll do this last one. Tucking chin to the chest, reaching over those legs there. And now while you're reaching for those legs, take the band off from between the wrists and step into it and step the legs. So now it's above the thighs. And then inhale yourself back up nice and tall. Exhale, roll down onto the mat there. Good. All right. Plant the feet, bend the knees, and kind of feel how that band or that resistance around the thighs is causing the knees to kind of come together. I want you to press them out so that they're hip distance apart. Hands down by the hips. Take an inhale. As you exhale, scoop, round, roll the tailbone, low back, mid back, upper back off of the mat until finally you have knee, hip, shoulder connection, or however tall your bridge is today. Inhale there and exhale to lower back down. Trying to place the spine at a longer distance away from the head each time. Inhale. Exhale, the curl of the pelvis is all from the core. And then when you're about halfway up, the glutes and the hamstrings start to turn on, but the core does not turn off because that's what's going to help to keep the ribs nice and flat, the front of the body flat. Exhaling back down. Inhale, spine long. Exhale, curling up, pressing out on that band, reaching the knees across the room. And now staying here at the top of the bridge, make sure the hands are pressing down and press the band out for 5, 4, hold that press out on this last one. Now drop the hips down an inch for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. From there, release the band just a little bit, rolling down one bone at a time from upper back, middle back, lower back, and then the tailbone again. Pulling the knees into the chest and rocking side to side. Holding the hands over the shins there. Good. And now taking that band to outside of the ankles themselves and coming back into with the feet planted. Bringing the hands behind the head, lifting head, neck, and shoulders off of the mat. So the hands behind the head are not lifting you. It's actually the core that's lifting you. If anything, the head is pressing back into the hands. And now with your feet, kind of walk them out against that resistance of the band. And pulling the belly button in will help to soften the low back onto the mat there. From there, I want you to reach the arms forward. Can you lift up a little bit more? Take an inhale into the back of the body. And as you exhale, lift the legs up into tabletop. Inhale the arms up. Exhale the arms down. Inhale the arms up. Exhale the arms down. Final 2. Final 1. Hold the arms down. Now inhale the legs up. Exhale the legs down. Inhale to exhale. Staying scooped through the front of the body. So you're making a kind of valley through the front of the body there. As you inhale, it's actually not coming into the belly, but instead to the back of the lungs, and then the exhale bend. Now, as you exhale, can you start to bend the knees in a little closer towards the chest, and inhale, reach the legs out a little further. Kind of like we do for our double leg stretch, which is exactly what we're getting into. Reach the hands over the shins, and now reach the arms away from the legs, maintaining your imprinted spine. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. For 2 more. And 1 more. Now lift the legs up, plant the hands back down by the hips, lowering and lifting the legs there. If your neck is starting to feel like it's starting to take over rather than the core, place one or both hands back again behind the head. Final 3. Imprinted spine remaining. Only go down as low as you can maintain it. Final 1. Good. Now with that band around the legs, if you need to take a break, hug the knees into the chest. Otherwise, legs are up long, and from there, walk the legs one on top of the other from side to side. So you're kind of twisting the legs side to side there, holding yourself lifted and pressing out into that band for 3, 2, last 1 and 1. Bend the knees now, pull in towards the chest, rock side to side, kind of giving that core a little bit of a break there, and walk the band back up above the thighs, planting the feet down into your hip distance apart position for some more bridging to help open up through that front of the body. Take an inhale. As you exhale, scoop around, roll yourself up, pushing the knees away from you. Good. And in the top of that bridge, just kind of hold it here. Maybe let's shift the hips from side to side, not down from one side to the next. We're not driving the hips side to side. Instead, your hips are like a typewriter, pushing one hip out to one side as the other hip pulls underneath of you. So you're going to feel a nice lengthening through the side body, in between the ribs and the hips there for yourself. Good. Inhale, square up the hips, and then exhale, lower back down. Inhale, spine long, and exhale, scoop around and roll back up into your bridge. Now, bridges, they used to be like a love-hate relationship with me. For me, when I started Pilates, I would always feel it like in my inner thighs, my low back. But by wrapping the ribs down, keeping the core engaged and the glutes turned on and hamstrings firing, that's where all of that positioning matters so that it can feel good to place the spine back down. Now, in this bridge, we're going to hold and start to reach the arms up overhead and exhale back down. Inhale up and exhale down. One more time, reach up. And then as you exhale, only reach up over the shoulders. Inhale, hinge back spine. So the whole spine places down onto the mat, and then you exhale to lift back up. As you inhale the hips down, exhale to press the hands down into the mat as the hips lift back up. Inhale, lower the hips, raise the arms. Exhale, lift the hips, lower the arms. It's that oppositional energy here. For 3. Still pressing out into that band. 2. Final 1. Hold that bridge at the top. Hands are down now by the hips and start to walk the feet away from you as far as you can. And then walk them back in towards you. One more time away from you. Keeping your hips lifted. If you're starting to feel it in the low back, come back in. Don't go as far. Then when the feet plant, lower back down. Tailbone trying to pull away from the head. And then finally it places back down. Windshield wiper the knees side to side again. And let's come back to our mat series, okay? So we're going to keep the band right there over the thighs, over the knees. Taking an inhale with the arms reaching up, and as you exhale, lift head, neck, and shoulders as the arms go down into your chest lifted position. Then pull the legs up into tabletop. Remember, knees over the hips, not in towards the chest to start, and the shins parallel. So if you flex the toes, you can see them kind of like peeking up over the knees there. So our single leg stretch isn't going to be as far of a stretch, but if you can get there, if you have that resistance of the band that's a little looser, you might be able to stretch one leg long. And then exhale, switch. Exhale, switch. Exhale, switch. So one knee is pulling the band towards you as the other leg, the back of that leg is pushing the band away from you. You can bring your hands to the shins, although keeping them next to the hips there might be a little bit more challenging if that's what you're looking for. For 2 more. 2. Last 1. And 1. Now lengthen the legs up towards the ceiling. Can you grab either behind the hamstrings or the calf there and take a slow scissor kick. My band is kind of walking up the legs now. If that's happening to you, that's okay. Just allow it to happen. You'll get a little bit more range of motion through the legs anyways, as one leg drops down towards the ground and you hook on behind the other leg for 1 more each side. Whew, it's going to come all the way up into my hips. All right, bend the knees in towards the chest. Rock side to side. We're going to take that band off and just put it off to the side here. All right. So grabbing behind the hamstrings, legs up towards the ceiling. I want you now to walk the hands up, coming up into your chest lifted position here. Hold this position. Now can you clap the hands behind the legs? And as the legs lower, clap the hands in front of the legs. Exhale, clap, inhale, clap, exhale. Notice how my tailbone is slightly lifting up so I can get the knees, the feet, the toes over the legs there. So we're working through that deeper core engagement. Cross the legs now at the ankles and continue. Lifting, lowering, lifting, lowering. 1 more with this cross and then cross in the other direction. Continue here for 4, 3, last 2, 1, and 1. Bend the knees in, rock side to side. Alrighty, now let's do some teasers. Okay, so we're going to use that band or that fabric or whatever it is that you chose to create the resistance around the legs and kind of use it as a slider. So bringing yourself up into a seated position here. So my band here is a little bit slippery on my floor, so if you're on carpet, a paper plate or even like a piece of paper works better to slide across that surface. Just make sure you don't get any paper cuts, okay? So we're going to start with the feet facing forward, hand right next to the hips, other arm, right arm reaching forward. So first working on our roll down. So as you roll down, reach the arm out to the side and look at where it goes. And then exhale to lift yourself back up. Exhale, lower down, watch where it goes. Exhale to lift back up. And continue here. Now, when you're ready to add on, you can stay right there, but if you're ready to add on, as it rolls down, I want you to roll onto that left hip. So now think of this as your side plank position. The lower body is very active. The whole entire bottom of my arm is pushing into the mat so that I can lift myself back up into that seated position. Inhale to roll, stack the hips, stack the shoulders. Exhale to bring yourself back up. Now, if this is feeling good and you're feeling ready for an extra challenge, as you exhale to lift back up, pull the knees either into tabletop teaser or straight leg teaser. Then lower yourself back down, stack the hips, reaching long and away. Exhale to lift up. Let's do 2 more here. And 1 more. Good. Bend the knees, plant the feet. And we'll do our actual side planking series. So the top leg is going to be on top or of course it's going to be on top. Top leg is going to be forward. Okay, knee bent up towards the ceiling. And then the bottom foot is right behind it, maybe about 2 inches behind it, with the knee kind of driving into the ground here. Meanwhile, the hand is kind of reaching out away from you. And what we're going to do to get up into that side plank is rainbow the hips up. So reaching with the right arm out towards the side. As you exhale, lift the hips, press the earth away, and straighten the legs out. So now notice how my hand is directly under the shoulder, other arm reaching up, maybe over to get a little deeper into that side plank, and then inhale to bring yourself back down, away from that hand. As you exhale, gather up all that energy, push away from the feet, straighten the legs, inner thighs together, reaching up overhead or towards the ceiling, and then inhaling back down. Exhale. Lift. Inhale, lower. So it's like we've got 2 panes of glass. So when you lift up into your plank position, you don't want to be like leaning down, looking down, or like leaning back and opening out behind you. You want to have a nice straight line of a body here. That was our last one. Let's bring ourselves back down, placing the hands back underneath of the hips and rolling through the shoulders a couple times, rolling through the back a couple times there. Good. Cat and cowing through the low back, upper back, and middle back. Alrighty. So now, making our way to the other side, I just want you to swing the legs around to the other way so that we can place that hand onto our slider or piece of fabric or piece of paper, whatever we need, sitting tall with the legs forward, toes pointed, legs strong. Right hand is on that slider. And we're going to start just by reaching that left arm forward and kind of watching where that slider goes. And you want to think of it as like a C curve. So you C curve back, roll back with that rotation, and then lift yourself back up. So this is where you start. If your goal is to get into that teaser, that side teaser position, then this is where you start to build up that oblique strength, to build up that curling energy, to be able to roll yourself up. There we go. Okay. So when you're ready to add on, you roll all the way or push it all the way away from you and roll the hips forward, stacking them and maybe lifting the legs off of the mat like you have one big fin, one big mermaid fin there. And then exhaling to roll back in and stack the spine tall. As you exhale, get into position. Inhale to hold. Exhale to lift back up. Let's do 2 more before we add on to that teaser. Exhale to lift. All right, so now after this one, here we go. Hold the legs lifted, and as you pull that slider in, keep the arms straight and instead either bend the knees in towards the chest or bring them up into your teaser position, long teaser. And as you lower the legs down, you start to stack the hips, reaching the arm away. Exhaling to lift the legs up. Inhaling to lower. So notice how if I move a little bit faster, that's when you lose your balance most of the time. So the slower you move, there we go, the better, the more efficient, and the more graceful it looks too. Let's do 2 more. Reaching out, stacking the hips, and exhale. to lift. Bend the knees, plant the feet. Let's go ahead, slide that away. And from there, coming into that side plank position. So top leg is your left leg now, facing forward towards the front of your mat as the bottom leg, your right knee opens down into the mat here. Right hand placed away from you, so kind of arms distance away, and then just place it down onto the mat. Left hand reaching long. As you exhale, you lift up, rainbow the hips up, and there's your side plank position. Okay. So I forgot to give you guys a modification on that other side. So if this does not feel good, you can either lift up just onto the knee and grow the other leg long. So the hips will be coming down and up into your plank position. So this is your modification here. Or you can come down onto your forearm of that bottom arm and keep the knee down as you lift the hips back and then forward. By pushing the hips forward, you're able to gain a little bit more glute engagement, side oblique engagement. Otherwise, if you have that long arm, long leg connection into your side plank, you're here. Rainbowing the hips up, so really feel the lower part of your obliques, pulling the hips and the ribs together, then reaching that arm either up towards the ceiling or overhead. Let's do 3 more. Last 2. And final 1. Good. Bring the hand down, back into your tabletop position. All right. Now in that tabletop position, tuck the toes underneath of you, keep them hip distance apart, and it's kind of like a power child's pose to plank. So I want you to power the hips back, kind of coiling up into a spring-like position. So feel how the core pulls up and you kind of like roll with the chin tucked in towards the chest. And as you exhale, shoot yourself out into your plank position. Inhale, lower the knees, come back, exhale into that plank position. Continue there. This doesn't feel good. You curl yourself or coil yourself forward into your kneeling position. So the knees never have to lift. Now, if you want to bring it up a notch rather than down a notch, you hover the knees and then pull yourself forward. Coil back, hover the knees, exhale, pull yourself forward. Last 2. Final 1. Hold here and then lift one leg and the other. Watch that the hips aren't shifting side to side. So this is not what we want. This is what we want. For 3. Last 2. 1 and 1. Either back into down dog or child's pose, with the hips pulling back towards the heels or up towards the ceiling. If you're in downward dog, kind of shift the hips side to side as you bend into one knee and then the other. Kind of opening up through the back here before we come into our extension. All right, bring yourself down to the knees if you were in downward dog before. Big toes touch, knees wide, and into that child's pose. With that child's pose, though, I want you to reach the hands back, resting the forehead onto the ground here, and then pulling the hands back behind you like we would for chest expansion. Inhale, lower the back of the hands onto the ground, and exhale, lift. Inhale, lower, exhale, lift. Lower, lift. Continue here for 2. Last one, hold the arms up. Now, can you lift the shoulders and the head up? Lower back down, but keep the hands high. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Then try to lift yourself all the way up, keeping the core tight. So now you're sitting onto the heels of your feet. From there, reach the arms forward. Exhale, chest expansion back. Reaching forward, chest expansion back. Feeling that nice opening through the chest as the back of the arms light up. Feeling the shoulders pull together. Now hold the hands back here and try to get the thumbs to touch. Shoulders are down away from the ears. And what we're going to do now is start to hinge forward again at the hips. Continue with that pulsing motion behind you, trying to get the thumbs to touch, keeping the elbows long, not bent, and the shoulders down away from the ears. Is the core still engaged, pulling up away from the thighs here for 3, 2, 1. Hold the hands, and it's just a tiny bend and extend, just a little micro bend of the arms there. Bend the fingertips down towards the earth, push them back behind you. For 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring the hands back down, reaching out in front of you if that feels good, or just down to the earth. And then planting the forearms and the hands down onto the ground. Shift the weight forward, so now the shoulders are over the elbows, and step back this time all the way onto the ground here. So let's bring the elbows in a little closer. So if you do any yoga, do any yoga, this is called Sphinx pose. So with the hands planted down onto the mat, I want you to feel like you're trying to pull the mat towards you. So this energy is coming underneath of you. We're not actually going to do that though. Hands are planted. Pull the mat underneath of you and open up the heart a little bit more. Gazing up, opening the throat and the shoulders down away from the ears. Tuck the chin on your exhale. Inhale, open up. Exhale. As you inhale, the core is still engaged. It's almost like you're trying to also push yourself away from the mat, raising up on the elbows. If that feels good for you, you can try it. Maybe again, that exploration coming into the practice. And then exhaling back down. All right, let's bring our hands underneath of the head, bend into the knees, windshield wiper the toes, side to side. And then with the forehead resting onto the mat, reach the hands back by the side, palms up towards the ceiling, flat feet, so tops of the feet, shoelace part of the feet down onto the mat. And we'll start now by lifting the legs off of the ground there. So pushing the pubic bone and the hip points into the mat, feeling just the glutes, not the low back engage. Inhale to lower, exhale to lift, keeping them about hip distance apart. If you have any kind of discomfort there, you can also place the hands underneath of your hip points for just a kind of little cushion. Lifting and lowering. Keeping the core engaged, ribs wrapped down. Let's do 2 more. And on this last one, hold the legs up, bend into the knees, heels together into your froggy bend, and push the feet up towards the ceiling. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, buddy. Bring the legs back down, reach the legs long, and place the hands next to the chest there. Hug the elbows in towards the side body, and then lifting yourself back up and back into a child's pose. Then we're going to bring ourselves back onto the mat there. When you're ready, lowering down the full front body onto the mat, forehead resting onto the ground there. And this time the arms reaching forward, if you can. If not, keep them down by the side. And with the arms reaching forward here, bring the pinky side of your hand down onto the ground so the thumbs are up towards the ceiling. Start to engage through the glutes. So you're kind of getting a slight pelvic tuck underneath of you so that you can lift the legs off of the mat. Okay? I want you to lower the right leg down, so just the left leg is lifted, and then right hand lifts up towards the ceiling. Lower left leg, right arm, lift right leg, left arm. And as you continue switching from one side to the next, feel now the glutes and the shoulders working together as they cross the body. What I mean by when they cross the body is the lats on the right side connect into the left glutes. They cross the body there. So they're working together to activate through that back line. Now I want you to explore that movement with a lifted head position. Just looking about 3 to 4 inches in front of the body. As you move one arm up, and the other arm up and down with the opposite leg. Now, can you try to lift up a little bit more? Oops, opposite leg, opposite arm, as you press into the ground with the opposite leg, opposite arm. Final 2 each side. Final 1 each side, keeping the arms long, keeping the spine long. Last one, lower down, hands by the hip or by the chest. Push back, hips to heels, lengthen through the spine into your child's pose, and rock the hips side to side. The wider the knees, the more of a low back release if you started to feel any tension coming in there. All right. Good. Now, reaching back forward, so coming into your tabletop position again. From here, kind of stabilizing through the spine, kind of resetting it before we end the class for today. So now I want you to reach that right arm long with the left leg like we just practiced, but make sure that the body is staying centered, not waving off to one side or the other. With that arm long, leg long, lift them both up, lower them to tap down onto the earth, lifting and lowering. And now this probably feels a little better, but you're also moving through a different range of motion, more range of motion, so that we can stabilize through the spine and just move those extremities. So if you felt like you did have any low back pain, switch to the other side. It might have been because the low back was taking over. Rather than the shoulder and the hip moving together, it was starting to kind of cross at that low back and take over with those extensors of the spine. For 3, 2, and 1. All right. Back to tabletop. Round through your cow pose. Exhale through into your cat pose, pushing the earth away. Tucking the chin and the tailbone underneath. And then one more time each way. Shoulders pulling down away from the ears. And then exhale, tailbone tucks. Belly bone scoops. Upper back rounds. And then sit back onto your heels, keeping that kind of scooped position, and then really stacking the spine tall. Ending with some neck rolls in one direction, and then coming back the way you came. Holding one ear off to the side onto one shoulder, bringing that same hand to the opposite side of your head to stretch out a little bit more through that side neck. Good. Release the tension. So I'm going to turn myself towards the camera so you guys can see. So now turn towards that shoulder, tuck the chin down towards the shoulder, and then with that same hand, so you're like checking the deodorant, making sure it's still working, bring the hand to the back of the head, and now you'll feel a nice lovely stretch through the back of that neck. And you also get to check and make sure your deodorant is working. Lift back up, and now to the other side. Bring that ear down to the other shoulder. That same arm that you're bending towards reaches up and gently, gently, gently presses the ear a little closer towards the shoulder, not the shoulder up towards the ear. I had to catch myself on that one always. My shoulders they always want to like try to tell me secrets. Good, then lift back up, turn towards that shoulder, tuck the chin towards the shoulder, and then open up through the arm, check the deodorant, pull the head down gently by pressing onto the back of the head. Good. And lift yourself back up. Hopefully you feel a little bit more lengthened, a little bit more strengthened.